Okay, so this is what I would lovingly call our grammar boot camp day. So I believe I have slotted for next week, and I'll review to do more reading, like practice and hands-on, but we need to spend some time doing grammar, which I have learned is something I have to make sure I cover with everyone. These are the topics that we are going to cover, and then we're going to incorporate some practice problems. It won't just be me talking. That would be exhausting, and I know you guys would get really tired of hearing my voice. Okay, so topics that are covered on this English test is going to be pretty much this list. This is not an exhaustive list. It means it doesn't have everything, but this is about 40-ish% of the ACT English test. But what I like to cover with grammar is, even though it's not every question, statistically, when I work with students, this is actually the questions they're missing in English. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of the structure we're going to go with, and we have more time, we'll do some more practice, and at the end, I'll talk about homework. So I will introduce a grammar concept. Hopefully, this is a review. I am not going to go crazy on each grammar concept. I put in more information than probably needed in this PowerPoint. I just feel better doing that, so you guys have something to reference if you want to. But I'm going to talk about how the ACT treats grammar, not how your English class treats it. Okay, so your first grammar concept is quote unquote called fanboys. I hope you have heard of this before. It should have been taught in middle school. Should is the key word. What I don't like about this graphic is the orientation of the commas, but it does highlight the words. So, long story short, the easiest way to think about it is the ACT treats fanboys like a period. So, I'm going to kind of give you a stupid but helpful example. So, for example, I like cats, comma, and I like dogs. According to the ACT, this is an appropriate use for fanboys because what you're breaking this into is two independent clauses or two standalone sentences. If you have heard this before, can you give me a one in the chat? If you have heard of this concept before, just seeing if we're tracking. Okay, cool. So at least two. Okay, that's better. That makes me feel better. And there's tons of resources online. I'm trying to give like the high level overview, which is like the details behind it. Okay. So long story short, that's why this works, comma, and because it separates two independent clauses. And then what is kind of critical with this as well is if it goes like I like cats and I like dogs. This one has no comma here. So technically, this would be incorrect because you have two independent clauses. So this would be a big no-no. That is pretty much the high level. The only ones I really see detail tested on the ACT, but of course I could be wrong because there's always nuances, is but and. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our practice and like real ACT practice. Okay, so this is a screenshot from the released October test. Got a kid entering. Please go ahead and attempt this question and DM me your answer. Take about a minute or so.
Wait, what are we doing? Sorry.
You're good. Go ahead and look at the question and let me know what you think the answer is. We just started going over grammar. Oops, now I stopped the share screen, which is not helpful. Sorry about that, guys. My computer has lost its mind. Okay, we should be able to see it. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see the general consensus and we'll talk about it. So I'm seeing B, I'm seeing D, I'm seeing B or C. Okay, we got a variety. So let's talk about this one. So one answer I am seeing, so I'm going to kind of quote unquote like prove answers wrong is the best way to go about it. And there's more grammar rules kind of layered in here, but we are focused on, I say test the strongest grammar first. And so right here equals a period. That's how I test it because it's a comma and. Let me just type out period. That looks a little better. So the way I do this in practice is whenever I see a question like this on the ACT, I look at it, I'm like, okay, what's my easiest or strongest punctuation to test? I'm like, oh, there's a period here, the comma and. So I just check. Interconnectedness eventually became the central theme of Torres's art in 2016. And then I asked myself, actually right here on art, because this is where that comma and is. So I'm going to reread this because I misread it. So interconnectedness eventually became the central theme of Torres's art. I asked myself in my head, is this a sentence? And that first part is, so let's check the other half. In 2016, with his Sunlight series, he paid homage to the people and place that inspired him. So since before and after, this one is actually going to be B. Since before and after were two independent clauses, the answer on this one is B. So the reason it's not C, because I had someone ask that, is because you've got two independent clauses. And then for D, if you kind of test it like this, let's see. This would be actually just like a really run-on sentence, and that's why that's wrong. Okay, any questions? Okay, let's keep going. Okay, next grammar concept. Some of you guys have heard about this before. These are semicolons. No one really writes with these, but same thing is semicolons act like a period on the ACT. So I always say, especially if I like work with someone in person, you have pretty much two things that equal a period on this test. So you got a semicolon and you have a fanboys, and we talk about this a good bit. So fanboys is what we just talked about this. Semicolon is the same way as well. According to the ACT, these are both correct. Now, if you go talk to your English teacher or a grammar snob, they're going to argue with you that that's not 100% the rule, but the ACT doesn't care about that. So we're just going with what they care about. Okay, so let's put this into practice. I believe this is from the October test. Oh, you guys are champs. Look at that. It is C. And if you were a little confused on why it's C, let's see, I got another answer. Should we read the whole passage or just read the underlined sentences to save time? That's actually a great question. Um, and this is what we'll practice more later on when we go over passages as a whole. In general, I suggest reading at least the sentence it's within. With the grammar questions, that's all you need. As a whole, you kind of want to skim as you go along just to get the gist. So that's a really good question. Okay, this is not something you need to memorize or anything like that. This is where I overshared information. But here is the key thing that actually matters. So this is talking about using a colon with time. You guys know that one. Um, Whenever I teach this in a class, people will commonly say like colons are only to do with lists, and I'll get yelled at about it. But here is actually what you need to know is yes, colons can be used in a list, but here's the big but. On the left-hand side of the colon to the left, it needs to be an independent clause or pretty much be able to like a standalone sentence. And the right side of the colon needs to be a fragment. Those are your two kickers. So what's different than a semicolon? So if it was a semicolon, it'd be independent clause, independent clause. Since it's a colon, it's independent clause and fragment. Um, it can be used as an introductory phrase, number two, and this is where this gets brought up, but this doesn't really come up too much. This is with quotes, so don't worry about that one. I do get asked about that occasionally. So let's test it. And I remove all my crazy writing. So go ahead and try this one and send it to me in the chat. That's still not erasing at all. Okay, so I am seeing D, 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 D. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, before I give the answer, here's the kicker. I'm going to read this out loud. So I'm going to read actually the second half just by itself. So if I read it like this, while some orangutan cultures designate leaves for use as, what is it, as napkins, others primarily use leaves to reposition the physicality of prickly edible vegetables. So let me know in the chat what I just read. Is that a complete sentence? Yes or no? What I just read, that second half, is that a complete sentence? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. It is. So guess what? This is where I'm gonna woo Nelly. Okay, I found my PowerPoint again. So here's the kicker, guys. This is the answer. But let's go over why. This is why I was asking you this. So, colons, you need an independent clause over here, that complete sentence over here, but this side has to be a fragment or an incomplete sentence. So, if you include while some of the orangutan culture designate leaves for use, no change is wrong because that would be a complete sentence on the right side of the colon. I'm going to go to B in a second and explain why it's right. C is incorrect because right here would make an insane run-on sentence. It also would delete the middle section. There's a variety of reasons why it's wrong. Let me see if I can show a couple according to. So one reason, and not the only reason why C is wrong is you have pretty much this massive run-on. So technically you can delete that stuff in the middle, but this is still going to be kind of a run-on sentence, which too much independent clauses going. And then D is incorrect because while is not a fanboy, so it cannot act as like pretty much a placeholder or an independent clause. So a complicated way of saying B is correct. We got to do some more practice on those later. Those ones are annoying. And if you don't get it, we're going to practice more of that, at least on the homework, if not today, because I might pull some more stuff on colons if we have time. Okay, three types of dashes. The key, I put the three types just so some people ask about this. The end dash is not something you need to worry about. I put it on there just so that you're aware this is connecting like dates. And then the hyphen is not something you're testing on either. This is really what you're testing on. Sometimes there's a single dash, which is an explainer. It's just it's been kind of rare. So this is really what you need to focus on is when you have two dashes, a dumb thing I say is the stuff in between is quote unquote extra fluff. What I mean by that is stuff between two dashes is non-essential information. And you might have seen that come up in the homework too. So just kind of a summary there. The example they gave is Bob was tired, exhausted really, but he knew he could not rest. So in general, Bob was tired. The stuff in the middle is not essential. Okay, so this is from the ACT.org website. Let's go ahead and give this a whirl. There's a massive trap in here. Seeing a lot of B's. Interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry this one doesn't have letters. I should have clarified. Just assume like A, B, C, D, but most of you guys did that. Okay, so it looks like most of y'all got it. Good. Okay, so the answer on this one is B. And so how this works. Okay, so how this works is one, if you see like a dash on one side and a comma on the other, and there's that kind of extra information in the middle, you don't want the like dash and the comma. That's kind of your red flag there, but most of you guys picked that up. So on this one, right here, that answer is B because just like two dashes, two commas kind of act the same way. They group non-essential information. So send me a one in the chat if you knew that stuff between two commas is non-essential. Send me a one if you have heard that or you knew that. There's a couple of y'all have spent time with me before. Okay, so you should because I say it a lot. Okay, so basic comma rules. Is this going to cover every single comma rule known to mankind? Absolutely not. That would be a little goofy. But here's some like just high level ones. So if you see red writing, that means it's wrong. And if you see green, that means it's right. just in case we're a little confused. Okay. So commas cannot be used to separate two independent clauses unless it has a fanboy. So there was a little bit of a trap earlier about this one. I went to the store, I was buying bread. That example is big, big wrong. Um, and then number two, words between two commas are not important. So this one right here, the example that's correct is in green. The boy, comma, who was wearing red, comma, went to the store. So it doesn't matter that he was wearing red. What is wrong, and I kind of highlighted a little bit in the homework, is when you have two commas, or even just typically, you have to be careful about commas around people's names. This one is wrong with Albert Einstein because you are saying that his name is non-essential, which is kind of a little bit sassy if you ask me. I mean, you kind of want to credit him, unless you really hate Albert Einstein, which I don't know why. Okay, here is another common usage of comma rules. Three can be used to introduce in 1803, the Louisiana Purchase was signed. Okay, pretty straightforward, but I try to touch on the baseline. Okay, here's when it becomes actually like real life practice. So go ahead and attempt this one right here. Looks like you guys are getting this one. I thought this one was kind of nice. Okay, so this answer is A. That is an introductory clause. Good. You guys are doing well. Okay, so here, oh, we already did that one. So let's make sure. No, we did not. This is just a similar passage. Okay, so here is another comma rule. This one is a little bit more of a trap, so go ahead and give this one a whirl. Okay, let's see. Oh, you guys are so smart. Nice. Okay, so D was the correct answer. And if you're unsure why, or you copied the person in the chat above you, hopefully that wasn't you, um, is like if you look at C and even the no change, it was an Abby, it was, and then this one is, it was well known. So putting those it there makes it an independent clause, and you don't want to use commas to break up independent clauses unless it's a fan voice. Cool. Okay, brevity is a fancy way of choosing the answer that's the shortest without deleting anything important. These ones are actually normally freebies, but I still like to touch on them. Okay, so which choice is least redundant in context? So this is a brevity one. So let's see how you guys do about it. Nice. Okay, so most of y'all figured out it's just going to be the shorter of the options. Because the other ones, like as I group together, when the probably butchering this, Kalari nights get cold, you just want the shortest way to say it. Just make sure that we touch on it, just so that there's kind of a freebie. I see something else in the chat. Okay, Lauren. So you do not have to memorize this. I give this as a baseline overview of subject verb agreement. Most of you guys know this, but I do have kids that do not. So in general, if it is a singular subject, then the verb will have an S, or if it's a singular subject, you've also got is, just kind of a quick kind of recap. And then for plurals, for subject verb agreement, you got the baby's drink, so you have no S or R is kind of your common ones there. Some of you guys, this should be a massive review, but I still do like touch on all like these in general, just in case this is kind of a new concept for anyone. Okay, so this is the real harder version of it. Nice. Look at y'all. You're champs. Okay, so yes, this one is Delves, because it's talking about a singular novel. Good. Okay, so commonly confused words. You've got affect and effect. These ones kill kids. Your actions affect others, which like that's the verb, and then effect. That film had an effect on me, and I say it cheesily just so you guys can hear the different letters. And then versus than. There is other commonly confused words. Like please don't get me wrong on that. But these are the ones that really mess kids up and are more likely to be seen. So then is time, than is compare. So that's kind of a general overview.